pushing the entertainment, pushing the political message and ideology into the entertainment was one thing, but they went beyond that, right? Now there was folks who actually got into local politics, not just government politics, like on a federal level, but like they decided they were going to get involved with Florida's politics, and that has set off a firestorm, hasn't it, Andre? And there's been a new development in that now.
It has indeed, because we've seen that Disney they've tried all of these things to basically block everything that has to do with the Reedy Creek Development District. A couple of weeks ago, we had like this headline, or the headlines that Disney has got them now. They use this homeowner thing and now they can't do anything. And that was never heard of again, obviously, because it isn't going anywhere. So the most recent development is that Disney sues Ron DeSantis personally over the Florida Special District. And if we are to read just the headline here to get the gist of it, this is from the Hollywood Reporter, and they say the entertainment giant says it was left with no choice. Keep that in mind. I'll get back to that. But to sue to protect itself from retaliation for expressing.
But I thought that was a slam dunk, Andre. Why would they have to sue?
And I'm very, very glad that you mentioned that. We'll get back to why they had after their previous slam dunk, because all of the trades told us it was.
Grace Randolph told me it was a slam dunk.
Exactly. And of course, that slam dunk was never heard from again. And there's a reason for that. Now we get
a very dangerous move.
On whose part?
On Disney's part.
It's going to look stupid as shit. Yes, I think. Yeah.
Well, they must have gotten some brilliant legal advice, though.
That honestly is the gist of it right there in the headline. There really is no more to say about it. They claim they are left with no choice but to sue to protect itself, because Ron DeSantis, being evil, he did retaliation against the Disney Corporation, because the Disney Corporation had the gall to use their freedom of speech to express a political viewpoint. So now he must be sued. Kerry, do you think that this is something that's going to go anywhere? Is Ron DeSantis shaking in his boots right about now?
I don't think so, because I don't know where it says that a corporation has a right to a sweetheart deal to give it tax credits and other privileges that the competitive corporations don't have. I mean, Universal doesn't have something like this. Right?
Not. This is unique to Disney. This is not a standard district.
Right. So it's kind of funny, because it seems to me, just the layman here reading this with you, but it seems to me that they're basically saying this isn't fair. We have a right to this because we've had it in the past, but you don't have a right to it as a corporation. You don't. So I don't see where this is going to go anywhere. It's not like he's shutting them down or saying you can't operate business or doing something illegal,
No, it was really interesting. I love the picture here, because it's really like him saying, I dare you, I double dare you to sue me, motherfuckers. But no, you're 100% right. He basically, it was like, okay, you've decided to get political now, and you're going to use, the media against us and all this other business. Well, then we're going to use the fact that you have a very special how do I use this? You have a special
you have a very special district.
Well, I was trying to think of another way to put it that kind of explains it a little easier, but
very special sweetheart.
They get very special privileges, I think is the way I was trying to put it, that others don't, and I mean nobody else does.
Yeah.
And we're gonna take that away from you now because you decided to get political. To me, it sounds like a crybaby bitching because he got punched after he was punching somebody. That's what the whole thing kind of feels like to me right now, and I'm laughing about this because I don't think it's going to go anywhere for them.
If Florida's point is that it is now equal for everybody, then Disney doesn't have a leg to stand on. Disney is suing because they've alleged that using extrajudicial political efforts, they are attacking their specific business only, independent of everybody else in Florida. Then Disney would have a leg to stand on. But it's like stopping the chemical companies polluting Love Canal. Like the government targeted these companies. Please stop polluting our waterways. They were kind of allowed to do that
because they're the ones polluting. That's what Disney's being targeted, because they're the ones that have these special deal, like these extra privileges. So it's like, why are you targeting us? Well, Universal doesn't have that deal.
Like, not only that, Universal wasn't out protesting against them either. That's the other part too. I think, you know, on the other side of it, if all the other parks and everybody else was on board with Disney, and then Disney was the only one who was singled out, then I could see them having an argument, right? Going back to
I'm waiting for the minions at Universal Park to picket DeSantis. That's what I'm. That's what I'm waiting for.
They want a special district, the minions, their own.
That's right, because they're evil. You know that.
Can you define a woman?
So Paul, I mean, any other thoughts on this?
No, that's it. I think we should start talking about Steve Crowder's divorce, I think, is what we should be talking about.
Well, no, like, so anyway, Andre, where do you think this is going to go then?
This is desperation.
Oh, yeah.
And it says so right here in the headline. Let's read that one more time, because it's right there. The entertainment giant says it was left with no choice but to sue. Why are you left with no choice? Well, I'll tell you, that's because you're up shit creek without a paddle. It's because you're cornered into a wall and you have nowhere to go. This previous slam dunk that I believe was it Gracie that talked about, like this slam dunk?
She was one of them, yes, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, anyone that thought that this previous thing, when they used this homeowner thing against them, anyone who thought that that was a slam dunk, anyone who thought, any YouTuber, any news outlet, anyone that thought that that was going to go anywhere whatsoever, heed their advice careful in the future, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, because it was obvious that was never going anywhere. That's what we're seeing right now. Behind the closed doors, that previous thing, we haven't heard about it, but that's been shut down already. It's been thrown out, or it's been communicated to them that this ain't flying, and that's what we're getting this. This is the last possible resort. This is Disney throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, and the only thing that is included in everything right now is to try to claim some kind of discrimination because this was done to them, this special district. And here's like the other thing. They are, again, if you refer back to what Valiant, Renegade, WDW Pro, and Legal Mindset have been saying the whole time, Reedy Creek is not Disney. It's a special taxing district, but it's supposed to be its own independent thing. Whereas here, again, they're conflating it in the article. So I think that even for that, they must have gotten some kind of backlash, because they're no longer trying to distinguish between the two. They've lost, and they know it. And this is a last resort. They're going to be like, Mr. DeSantis, we know you want to be president. We know you haven't announced yet, but it's obvious. Like, even at your re-election, people are like shouting 2 more years, and you've been doing like some bad things in the press. Like, some of the ratings aren't really going to go your way. You really want like a lawsuit with Disney to be here bothering you, standing in the way of your political ambitions. That's the only reason they're doing this, because this ain't going to go anywhere. The real thing they're trying to do here, they don't think that this is going to win. They know that this ain't going anywhere. But they are hoping that DeSantis is going to decide, you know what, this bad press of a lawsuit against me, it's not worth it, so I'm just going to end it some way and move on. What they don't understand is that DeSantis is finished if he gives in. He can't lose this fight. He can't, like, now he's stopped. Yeah. Now he said A. He has to say B. He can't back down now. Because here's like the thing. I always maintained that when this was first taken away under Bob Chapek, I always maintained that in the year between this thing right here being announced to the public and it actually being executed, there's going to be some backdoor channels. There's going to be some talks between Chapek and DeSantis, and we know now that there.
I mean Iger.
Backdoor. No. I mean Chapek.
Well, Chapek's out of the picture.
I know. I'm getting to it.
Okay.
But back when this first happened, this was on Chapek's watch, and we know that there was a backdoor line of communication with Chapek and DeSantis. I submit, as I said in videos then, that if Chapek had stayed on, he would have been able to convince the board that we need to do this, otherwise we're going to lose this. We need to go non-political. We need to work something out with Florida that's going to be a mutual win for both parties. Something where Florida gets increased influence, but Disney still gets to keep some. That way, both gets a win out of it. No one loses face. Disney won't lose trillions over the next few decades here. Well, billions at the very least. But then Iger came back in again, and all of that went to hell. Because Iger has been ultra confrontational. That's something that Chapek wasn't. All these attacks on DeSantis, that started after Iger came back. Because I think whatever kind of backdoor line of communication, that was severed the moment Iger came back. And after Iger came back, that's when DeSantis actually signed that legislation into law. And he did it much earlier than he had to, which tells me that things were really bad between him and Iger in a way that they weren't between DeSantis and Chapek.
Yeah, there was some rumors that things had cooled down because Florida couldn't do anything for a year anyway, right? And that Chapek actually managed to put most of all this stuff on the back burner for the time being. That's the impression we got.
And I submit that if Chapek had remained, if Chapek had been able to win out, if we had been able to get Mr. Peltz on the board to support Chapek, none of this would have been an issue.
Oh yeah, because that's a lot of powerful individuals.
And all of those people, they had a backdoor line of communication.
And Perlmutter, all those
and
people.
Perlmutter and DeSantis, they're tight.
Yeah, so the question I have for you, Andre, is the Reedy Creek thing a bigger thing that bigger issue than Disney lets on, and that's why they're pushing for this?
Yes, it is the bigger thing than Disney lets on. Because here's like the thing, they're used to it now. And what this thing actually, we don't know how much it's actually worth for them to have this kind of special tax district. But it was something that basically was something of a free lunch. And it has always been since 1957. It was initiated. And if it continued, it would have continued to be a free lunch that no one else had for all future. How much is something that will save them maybe like, say that it will save them like 50 million a year for all future? What's the value of that? And they lost it. And I submit they lost it because Alonso and her partners in crime, they forced Chapek into a position where he had to take a stance. And we know now that Bob Iger, he was behind it. What they hadn't calculated on was that DeSantis would retaliate in this way. Now, again, that is something that if Chapek had won out, Nelson Peltz had come aboard, I believe that could have been resolved. But instead, Chapek was ousted. Bob Iger, who does not see eye to eye with DeSantis at all, came back in. And then it was full conflict. Now it's no longer about a state and a commercial company. Now it's about the ego of two men and the political aspirations of both of them who are in a collision. And Disney shareholders have lost for it. Bob Iger, since returning, has run Disney into the ground. So I'm very excited to see what he's doing right now with all of these firings, what kind of new Disney will emerge afterwards. But it's going to be a Disney that no longer has the Reedy Creek Development District, because that thing is gone. And this lawsuit right here only further testifies to me that it is a done in a deal. It ain't coming back. And DeSantis, he's laughing all the way to the bank over this. well, not to the banks, but certainly to like the pollsters, because this is him standing up to a woke corporation, and this is just another win for him. I don't know if Iger and company don't have the smarts to realize that, but this is to DeSantis' credit. He's taking on a woke corporation. He's not backing down, and they're growing increasingly desperate. Oh, I know your Grace Randolphs and your other inept people that run cover for Disney and be like, oh, DeSantis is like really shaking in his boots. Well, what happened with your previous slam dunk?
He's not shaking in his boots. You're right. They don't get it. The reason why he's become such a cultural figure outside of Florida is because he's seen as someone who is willing to take on woke infiltration in corporations and government, etc. So he wouldn't back down from this. I can't see that.
Yeah.
Didn't he say like 3 or 4 days ago, he was like, it seemed like he was trolling them. He said he's going to put a prison next to Disneyland.
He did say that.
Yeah.
He did say that. Yeah.
And that's called Epcot.
Yeah. Of course, it's never going to happen. But again, that's him trolling. That's him playing to his base, because you all see how he mimics the orange man bad in every single way. Like behind him in his corner are the Bushes massaging his shoulders and everything. You see right there, like Jeb Bush, who was humiliated by the orange man. He's right there whispering in his ear and everything. Everyone keep that in mind. And he's like even mimicking the body language of the orange man bad thing. But that's kind of like what he's doing here as well. He's trolling them in a way that he thinks is going to appeal to the base, appeal to the same crowd that voted for the orange man.
Well, and normally, I don't like governments being able to step in and mess with certain things, and I wouldn't like a position like this. But this is also a position that Disney is the only one who has, right? Like, that was what I was saying before, too, about, like, it would be different if everybody else was going after them. They might have a case if every single other business in Florida like this was also doing the same kind of thing, and Disney just got, singled out. That'd be one thing. But Disney is singled out already because they have this special privilege that nobody else has.
Yep.
And all he did was just take it away. It's just like, you have a group of kids and they're all, and one's complaining and the other ones aren't. And they didn't get their special dessert tonight because they were bitching.
Exactly. But anyway, my point is that's why DeSantis is trolling Disney by saying, oh, maybe we'll put a prison there. Or I'm just waiting for him to say, maybe we'll put a nuclear power plant there. We'll call it Chernobyl too. Because that'd be hilarious.
I think that would be very funny. That would be a great ride.
Yeah, it would be.
put it in the main. What is it? What did Disney call it? The Main Avenue, USA.
I don't know. I
haven't been there for so long.
Yeah, I've been in Disney World once in my life, and that was in 1995. So I don't remember all that well. So.
No, my last time I was there was, I believe, with my son, who was 5, got really mad at me, and he punched me in the groin and gave me a hernia.
Oh,
wow,
family memories.
That's right. Which.
I mean, the Toonland find that ain't nothing. I mean, the Chatos at Disney World. That's the one that should have been on YouTube.
My daughter and I, we joked all the time. My son was the kind of person who just hated my jokes. He's more like my wife. And I just joked with him, and he's this 4-year-old midget. We were at Disney World. He got really mad and just punched me. That was it. Then I was in pain at Busch Garden. I mean, it was just a terrible trip for me. But we're good friends now.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And bond over cars and everything.
The bumper cars?
No, bond over cars. And everything.
Oh, yes. And we bond over cars. Oh, yes. My son is.
But yeah, to round out the Disney talk here, then, is that, this is obviously pure desperation. Pure desperation and nothing else.
That's great. It's great drama.
Yeah. I think it's just so they can have the headlines, like you said, saying they're suing him. And it's so funny to have a foot in 2 different echo chambers or worlds, if you will, one being a bigger echo chamber than the other. But I am still friends with some people on social media who are in the leftist or the woke kind of world, and the few who have not unfriended me, and they just have a different. It's like that Scott Adams quote about watching two different movies. They have sometimes a very different view of what's happening, and so something like this, I'm sure I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure I'll see them all like, Disney's gonna stick it to DeSantis, shaking in his boots, like you said, all that stuff. They don't really know. I don't think they understand very much how people who are not in that world think. So
Yeah, I don't think so either, but that's what happens when you are in an echo chamber or you are in a bubble. Basically, it's a bubble, and of course they're going to believe the narrative fed back to you, which of course the media will be very happy to help with. But that's
yeah,
not going to influence the courts. The courts obviously have passed down some kind of verdict here. Otherwise, Disney wouldn't be pressed into this corner. But Tom, let's run through a couple of super chats here.
Well, let's start with the ones that have to do with Disney.